Alright, shalom. I'm doing this video in regards to a question someone had asked me about Sabbath keeping. Can we buy or sell with the mark or without the mark? And this is a multifaceted question that we're asking, actually. And it, of course, connects to the mark of the beast. Can we buy or sell without the mark of the beast? But secondarily, one that people don't typically think of is, may we buy and sell in consideration of the mark of Yahweh, the mark of the Heavenly Father, that He seals us with His signs and His marks. And so I'm going to do this somewhat in regards to how to keep the Sabbath day holy and what types of things are appropriate, but also in regards to the times that we're in, and considering where does this great deception come from that we're under, and the times we are coming into as we see that it is getting more and increasingly difficult to buy and sell in various parts of the world without having this snake bite, this venomous snake bite, death shot. All right, so the first thing we're going to start out with looking at is, of course, Revelation 13:16-18, screen share here. It says, "It, the beast, also forced all people, great and small, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hands and on their foreheads, so that they could not buy or sell unless they had the mark, which is the name of the beast or the number of its name. This calls for wisdom. Let the person who has insight calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man. That number is 666, or 666. So we're talking about this idea of being able to buy or sell. Are we at that point? And also, back in history, we need to consider some things about some manifestations about this type of thing, because it's necessary to think about dual fulfillments and various ideas, because we need to, typically we're taught that everything is just in this 7-year tribulation, but we aren't taught a lot about other manifestations, a beast system, a beast following, a beast who takes over the whole earth, but that beast has to work its way to that point over time, instituting certain laws and certain control mechanisms over the people to be able, at the end, to have full domination and control. So that's what we want to think about. The first thing I want to look at is actually not the mark of the beast so much, but the one that people just absolutely avoid at all costs, it seems, and it is the mark or the seal of the Holy Spirit, the seal of the Lord, the seal of Yahweh. Ezekiel 20:12 says, "I also gave them my Sabbaths as a sign between us, so that they would know that I am Yahweh who sanctifies them." Of course, capital L, capital O, capital R, capital D, all caps. We know that that is Yahweh's name, which was removed. And it says that His Sabbaths are a sign, a marker, a distinguishing mark between Him and His people. You know, the word Sabbath itself, if you know that each Hebrew letter has a meaning, well, the sheen is like teeth, and it means to set apart. The bait is a house or covering, set apart house, set apart family. And then the tav, the T was originally like an X, like a marker. So set apart family, covenant marker. That's what the word Shabbat means when you break it down. And here in the cross references of Ezekiel 20:12, we see some of the other ones. Exodus 31, directly in Moses' Torah and commandments. Tell the Israelites, surely you must keep my Sabbaths, for this will be a sign between me and you for the generations to come, so that you may know that I am Yahweh who sanctifies you. There we see that it will be a sign, a marker. Again, Exodus 31:17. It is a sign between me and the Israelites forever. For in 6 days Yahweh made the heavens and the earth, but on the seventh day he rested and was refreshed. Now, of course, we have to take Israelites spiritually in modern times, because, well, we'll look at that in a second. Again, we see Isaiah 56:2, blessed is the man who does this, and the Son of Man who holds it fast. He who keeps the Sabbath without profaning it, and keeps his hand from doing any evil. And then you see Jeremiah 17:22, you must not carry a load out of your houses, or do any work on the Sabbath day, but you must keep the Sabbath day holy, just as I commanded your forefathers. Now, many would start saying, well, isn't this Old Testament, and this is for Israel, and this doesn't apply to us anymore? Well, you know, Yahusha, Jesus said, he quoted Deuteronomy 8, and he quoted the Torah to defeat Satan when he was being tempted in the wilderness. And he said, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of Yahweh. So we know that we are to seek to live by every word. And additionally, we see that this is one of the 10 commandments, keeping the Sabbath day holy. And it says, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. Now, he's telling Israel to remember something. This is the one commandment that has this word remember. And if he's saying to remember it, he's simply telling them this has already been all along, but I want you to really not forget it. Call it to remembrance so that you'll keep it holy. Something that it's already holy, but I want my people to keep this day holy. How do you do that? That's one of the questions today. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of Yahweh, your Elohim. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates. For in 6 days Yahweh, here it is, here's the reason, in 6 days Yahweh made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that in them is, and rested the seventh day. Wherefore Yahweh blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. So the whole reference point of this Sabbath is it goes back to creation when Yahweh rested on the seventh day. And it says he blessed it, he sanctified it or set it apart, and he rested. So we're following his pattern when we obey this commandment. And this is a very, very significant commandment when becoming a believer in the Creator and following him and his commands and observing his patterns that he gave us. So, and notice how it specifies all these different people within your, if you're the leader of a household, you don't support anyone working who is under your authority, and you won't cause anyone to work for you on the Sabbath day. This is very important when observing Sabbath, is that you do not work and you don't cause anyone, you're not going to pay someone, if you know, for instance, a restaurant or something of that nature. Well, I'm not working, I'm paying them to work. We don't want to turn around and be supporting people who are breaking the Sabbath. So this is one of the questions about keeping Sabbath, is can we buy and sell when we have the marker of Sabbath, Yahweh's Sabbath covenant marker? And you know, again, this goes back to creation. This was not strictly for Jews or Israel. This was given to man, as Jesus said, the Sabbath was made for man. He didn't say the Sabbath was made for Jews. He said the Sabbath was made for mankind. Okay, so we need to get that out of our heads. That, you know, that's just for Israel. No, it was not just given. It was told for them to simply remember it. So the first thing we can check here is, I do want to look at the meaning of this word, a sign, and it is this Hebrew word oath. It's pretty much the same word as oath. To make an oath, well, if you make an oath, then you're making a covenant. That's pretty much the word. And it says it's a sign, it's a pledge, and it comes from this word here, avah. And if we click that, what are we going to see? Computer, internet lagging a little bit here, as is typical. Avah, to sign, mark, describe with a mark. So this is the verb form. So you see this idea of a signing, a marking, a marker. It's a marker on us. The Sabbath day, that's what it is. It's to be a covenant marker, to set us apart. And so now, what is the first thing that Hasatan, the devil, if you will, Satan, and his people and his kingdom, what would he do? What would be the first thing that he would want to do to the people who believe, the people who want to enter into covenant and through belief in the Messiah and, you know, belief in Jesus? Sure, have Jesus, sure, okay, he's so popular, everyone wants to believe in Jesus, awesome. What would be the first thing to get them off track? Is to remove this covenant marker, this resting, this no buying and selling on a certain particular specific day that was specified as the seventh day of the week, not the first day of the week. Well, of course, that's the next thing to look at, is Emperor Constantine of Rome. This was the first thing that was changed. And if you just Google Constantine closed shops on Sunday, then of course it's pretty well-known history by now. You'll see that Emperor Constantine promulgated the first known law regarding prohibition of Sunday labor for apparent religion-associated reasons in 321 AD. Sometimes the sale of certain types of merchandise was prohibited, and in some cases, all retail and business activity. So here we see this manifestation of the beast system, the mark of the beast. Getting rid of that covenant marker, which is the seventh day of the week, and replacing it with his own authoritative mark, the mark of the beast, Sunday worship. Now, if you've come out of this, it can be, just very difficult to see this. It just, because you just have been trained that a day of the week doesn't matter. But, if Yahweh says it matters, it matters. So here we see this early on manifestation, only 300 years after Messiah, that this comes into place. So we have to consider this beast system, and the first thing it needed to do is to make this major change. And by the way, we see this, the Vatican, the papacy, the Pope, and the Catholic Church, the Holy Roman Empire, if you will, following suit. So this, if we recognize this, this helps us really understand a lot better where the deception comes from and where it started. The Council of Laodicea was assembled about 363 to 364 AD in Laodicea. Now, if we know about the lukewarm church or assembly of Laodicea, of course, we know that that's not exactly a great name, the Church of Laodicea. But what we see here is the church, the Catholic Church, also enforces this changing of the Sabbath. You see, one of these major points of this council was outlawing the keeping of the Sabbath, Saturday, and encouraging rest on Sunday. So there you have it. Rome installs this changing of the covenant marker. And, it was literally understood in the New Testament that one of the first entry ways when you place faith in, the door, the Messiah, is you start following him, doing what he did. And of course, as a Jew, and an Israelite, he kept the Sabbath day holy. So what are we going to do? Of course we're going to follow him. What do you, really say if you are a modern day Christian? What do? You go to church on Sunday. It's just, hey, I place faith. Hey, where do you go to church? It's just almost without thinking is you go to church. Well, in the original days in the New Testament and when Jesus walked the earth, it was just a given. If you believed in him, you were a Sabbath keeper. It went without thinking. You're entering a Hebraic, Hebrew faith, an Israelite, Jewish faith. You're going to go to synagogue on the Sabbath day. So this was ripped out, and Rome is responsible for changing this eternal covenant. But in the New Testament, if you even look in Acts 15, new converts and Gentile believers were to immediately quit pagan activities. They were given 4 laws they had to immediately follow of the Torah, and that was pollutions of idols, fornication, eating things strangled, and from consuming blood, pagan practices. And then they would be able to learn the Torah of Moses every Sabbath day, because Moses is preached every Sabbath day. It wasn't even really commanded, because it was just so common sense to enter into a Hebrew faith. You're joining Israel. You're becoming part of the Israelite faith. Now the Sabbath day applies to you. And it was so accepted in that's Acts 15, 20, and 21, where we see that what new converts had to immediately do was separate from paganism and begin learning Moses and the Torah every Sabbath day. So it's actually a fifth thing that was your entryway into covenant and into following the ways of Yahweh was through keeping the Sabbath day holy and turning away completely from the pagan things which they used to do. Now, what do we see today? We see that Sabbath removed, the seventh day changed to the first day. We see all the pagan feasts, since Christmas is originally pagan, Ishtar is originally a pagan day. We see that we don't any longer, when we place faith in Messiah, we don't teach people to keep the Sabbath day holy and to turn away from pagans. We actually teach them how to celebrate pagan worldly holidays rather than the biblical holidays. So let's keep track here as we see here the Council of Laodicea, and let's just read real quick about the Laodicean Assembly. And as you know, church is not the greatest translation because it's a pagan temple, actually. Revelation 3:14 through 22, to the angel of the assembly of Laodicea write, these are the words of the Amen, the faithful and true witness, the ruler of God's creation. I know your deeds, that you are neither cold nor hot. I wish you were either one or the other. So because you are lukewarm, neither hot nor cold, I am about to spew you out of my mouth, spit you out of my mouth. You say, I am rich, I have acquired wealth, I do not need a thing, but you do not realize that you are wretched, pitiful, poor, blind, and naked. So we see this negative thing, and if you know, there's the 7 assemblies in Revelation, that the book of Revelation is written to these 7 assemblies. Well, the 7th assembly, the last assembly, or if you want to say the last church, at the end, the last one is lukewarm, goes into apostasy, will be judged, they'll be spewed out. So this last Laodicean church will be judged. Well, it's the Council of Laodicea that changes the Sabbath. Well, you can't change Yahweh's laws, of course, but they attempted to do that in a large governmental scale. So that's what we see. How prophetic is that happened at the Council of Laodicea, because that would be another early manifestation of the beast system. So the next thing I want to look at is this idea of buying and selling. If we want to know the deception, we need to understand where the deception begins and where it comes out of. So we see this covenant marker being attempted to change, but the whole world basically follows along. There's always been people who kept the Sabbath day throughout history, but by and large the Sabbath day was forsaken. So can we buy and sell on the Sabbath day? This is something I really want to confront about Sabbath keeping, because someone actually asked me to do a video about how to keep the Sabbath day holy, since I've preached that we need to keep the Sabbath day. Well, what's the correct and appropriate way of doing it? If we look in Nehemiah, now Nehemiah takes place in the Second Temple period. Yahweh actually gives them a second opportunity to rebuild Jerusalem, rebuild the Second Temple, return to their land from the Babylonian captivity and have a second opportunity to observe the Torah and the ways of Yahweh. That's what's taken place at the time of Nehemiah. And verse 15 says, "In those days I saw a people in Judah treading wine presses on the Sabbath, and bringing in grain and loading it on donkeys together with wine, grapes, figs, and all other kinds of loads. And they were bringing all this into Jerusalem on the Sabbath. Therefore I warned them against selling food on that day." People from Tyre who lived in Jerusalem, so Gentile peoples living in the Holy Land and where the temple is, were bringing in fish and all kinds of merchandise and selling them in Jerusalem on the Sabbath to the people of Judah. He says, "I rebuked the nobles of Judah and said to them, 'What is this?'" Look at this, guys. "What is this wicked thing you are doing, desecrating the Sabbath day?" Now, this was seen as an evil, wicked thing. Did your ancestors do the same things so that God brought all this calamity on us and on this city? Now you are stirring up more wrath against Israel by desecrating the Sabbath. So here we see this evil, wicked thing of buying and selling and trading on the Shabbat, even when it was in relation to Gentile people doing the work, selling to them. We are in no way to buy and sell on the Sabbath. This is perhaps the first thing to understand about resting from labor, and to also connect this to the mark of the beast, where Constantine made it so that no one could buy or sell on the first day of the week, Sunday. He caused shops to be closed. Well, that's such a great apostasy, because the commandments of Yahweh were that we are not to buy and sell on His covenant day, the seventh day of the week. That is when we are intended to rest. So this reinforces the point of no working. Sometimes you have to decide for yourself, am I working on the Sabbath day? But the bottom line is that we want to avoid going into any shops on Saturdays and getting a candy bar or, coffee, all these things that require us to support businesses which are working and operating and doing business on the Sabbath. We should not be buying or selling on the Sabbath. We shouldn't be engaging in any business, because this was what brought judgment upon Israel the first time when they were just carried away into the Babylonian captivity. They just disregarded the holiness of the Sabbath days. And we see that really reinforced here in the book of Nehemiah. And so that brings us to consideration, of the situation we are now in. If we see when this deception of being able to buy and sell, with what mark do you have? When are you supposed to refrain from buying and selling? Which day of the week? The Sabbath day. And when did it get changed to be a different day, and Sabbath day was forbidden to be observed, or else you'd be greatly persecuted? Well, that took place way back when Rome really was picking up this steam, and everyone, people think, well, it became a Christian world because of Constantine, and people want to congratulate him, but really what he did was he took Yahweh's ways and he joined them into paganism, which is another great evil, because we are not to worship Yahweh the way of the heathen. It's not appropriate. It's strictly forbidden in the Torah. We can't do it. We can't worship him in pagan ways because that's unholy. That's not set apart. So the time we are now in, and by the way, I want to highlight about the people asking about how to keep the Sabbath day holy. It is a time to do a lot of the same stuff you would do in church: praise, worship, prayer, entering into this spirit of focus on Yahweh that day, that you're putting your efforts into worshiping and serving the Most High. And Leviticus 23, where the Sabbaths are all outlined in one chapter, all the holy days of Yahweh, it says that the Sabbath day is to be a holy convocation. We are to assemble on the Sabbath day. We are to have, forsake not the assembling of yourselves together, so much the more as you see the day approaching. What day is Hebrews 10:25 talking about? You just have to go back to Hebrews 4:4 and Hebrews 4:9. Of course, the seventh day, which was established at creation in Genesis 2:1-3. Look that up as you have time. So what had to happen is there had to be installed a worldwide deception by this beast system. So now let's go back to Revelation 13. And remember, we opened up with Revelation 13:16 with the mark of the beast. Well, what do we read here? The dragon stood on the shore of the sea, and I saw a beast coming out of the sea. It had 10 horns and 7 heads, with 10 crowns on its horns, and on each head a blasphemous name. The beast I saw resembled a leopard, but had feet like those of a bear, and mouth like that of a lion. The dragon gave the beast his power and his throne and great authority. And one of the heads of the beast seemed to have had a fatal wound. But the fatal wound had been healed. The whole world was filled with wonder and followed the beast. People worshipped the dragon because he had given authority to the beast, and they also worshipped the beast and asked, who is like the beast? Who can wage war against it? So we see this description of the beast has to be none other than Rome. And by the way, the Catholic Church to this day calls Sunday Sabbath, or the first day of the week, worship as a commandment. That is her mark of authority. That is admitted to this day to being the Catholic Church, or the Vatican, or the papacy. That is her mark of authority. That's why this is so significant. Now, this fatal wound that people talk about is, they talk about the papacy did receive a fatal wound, I want to say around 1798. But let's continue reading. The beast was given a mouth to utter proud words and blasphemies, and to exercise its authority for 42 months. And it opened its mouth to blaspheme God and to slander his name and his dwelling place and those who live in heaven. Now, of course, blaspheme God and slander his name, they don't even speak the name of God, which is Yahweh. And what do we see going on? That they want to remove the God gene from our temple, the temple of our bodies. Is that not the deception we see ourselves in? That Yod-He, Waw-He, written on our genetic code, they want to destroy it. So we need to see where the deception began and when it began to get us to this point and to understand that, hey, we might be thinking, oh, awesome, we're waking up, we're seeing in the end, we're in the end times. But guys, if we sit back and say, I don't want to put Yahweh's covenant marker on my life, I don't have to keep the Sabbath day holy, we don't know what day it is, it's been lost, it's not for me, the day doesn't matter. You know, Yahweh said it matters. He wouldn't have said it if it didn't matter. And, you know, there's certain covenants that are eternal that he established at creation, you know, and then he established the rainbow. These are undeniable things. The rainbow pops up after it rains, boom, we think of his covenant with Noah. It's not going away. The same thing of the days of the week. It's eternal. 7 days, 7 days. 6 days of work, day of rest. 6 days of work, day of rest. It keeps cycling. This doesn't get interrupted. It doesn't operate off of the moon, as many people try to say, and try to follow this false teaching of following the moon for the Sabbath. No, it's simply the 7th day of the week. It's an eternal covenant. It's been kept. It's just incredible. And the whole deception is the changing of the 7th day of the week to the 1st day of the week. That's the whole deception we see here. So, continue reading. It was given power to wage war against God's holy set-apart people and to conquer them, and it was given authority over every tribe, people, language, and nation. All inhabitants of the earth will worship the beast, all whose names have not been written in the Lamb's book of life, the Lamb who was slain from the creation of the world. And we will just skip down to verse 11, and this is what I believe to be America. Then I saw a second beast coming up out of the earth. It had 2 horns like a lamb, but it spoke like a dragon. It exercised all the authority of the first beast on its behalf, and made the earth and its inhabitants to worship the first beast, whose fatal wound had been healed. So this second beast is putting all this strength and power back to the first beast that started the power. So what's the connection here? We see Babylon being a great beast, being the first manifestation of Babylon, Rome. The second manifestation of Babylon, the United States, giving power back to Rome. Makes perfect sense. And what is it? What are we so huge on in this nation that you think it's awesome, you think it's great? Going to church on Sunday, keeping pagan holidays, keeping the Pope Gregory's calendar, all the Vatican, all the papacy, all pagan, everything pagan. That's the United States giving the power back to the first beast. And it performed great signs, even causing fire to come down from heaven to the earth in full view of the people. Kind of makes you think of the atomic bomb. Because of the signs it was given power to perform on behalf of the first beast, it deceived the inhabitants of the earth. It ordered them to set up an image in honor of the beast whose wound by the sword and yet lived. The second beast was given power to give breath to the image of the first beast, so that the image could speak and cause all who refused to worship the image to be killed. It forced all people, great and small, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hands or on their foreheads, so that they could not buy or sell unless they had the mark, which is the name of the beast or the number of its name. This calls for wisdom. Let the person who has insight calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of man. That number is 666. Now, I just did a video about considering the mark of the beast. You can go back and check that one out. But how important do we see it that this theme of buying and selling, which should be forbidden on the Sabbath, was changed so that people would not buy and sell on Sunday, the first day of the week, the venerable day of the sun, as Constantine called it. So that people will work and profane the Sabbath, so that they will do this evil thing, so that they will be under the judgment of Elohim, so that they could establish human authority and have a man have the authority of God over the people and be a beast and a beast system to cause all to worship him. If we want to not have any part of this, we need to reinstall the proper marker of the Sabbath day. So that pretty much sums it up of keeping the Sabbath. Can we buy or sell without the mark? Well, hey, it depends what day of the week it is, doesn't it? Because we are not to be buying or selling. We are not to be trading. We are not to be doing any work on the Sabbath or supporting anyone else doing work, even if it's a Gentile, an unbeliever. We don't want to pay them to work for us. Hallelujah. Praise Yah. I hope that this really sinks in deep with you so that you can say, hey, when it comes, this is an issue of worship. This is an issue of who we serve, who we obey. Worship on Sunday, worship a man, serve a man, the Pope, and the President of the United States, who gives power back to the Pope by reinforcing all the same pagan things. Or we worship Yahweh, we keep his commandments, we worship him the way he specified. Because he gave us instructions. That's what Torah means. It means instruction of how to worship him and how he wanted to be worshipped. He's a set-apart God. And, you know, that is love. Loving God, loving Elohim, is to abide by his rules and regulations, his commandments, because we love him. So let's put his covenant marker back on our lives, and let's remove the mark of the beast and the beast system and obeying a man who cannot possibly change God's law. He can only think to change times and laws. Hallelujah. And guys, we'll see you on the next one. Like, share, and subscribe if you found this video helpful, and share it out.